Hi, this is Eric Blumthal, co-founder of Count5, and here is a comprehensive demonstration of our q.MINDshare software. q.MINDshare improves performance of a company workforce by adding measurement, reinforcement, and accountability to training and communications. Before we dive into the demo, let's spend a couple minutes highlighting two success stories because, ultimately, it's all about outcomes. So here are a few examples of customer outcomes. Verizon used Q exclusively for big initiatives. Their first initiative was rolling out a new CRM and sales process to over 5,000 B2B sales reps and managers worldwide. Big changes in people, process, and technology. Verizon leveraged Q in three ways: pre-enforcement, change management, and reinforcement. The concept of pre-enforcement was once a week for 8 weeks, establishing a solid foundation of understanding among their target audience. And by doing this, everyone was starting on the same page when live training began. They were able to shave a full day off of live training as a direct result of pre-enforcement, which was over $2 million in labor savings, not to mention they bought 5,000 reps an extra day of selling. From a change management standpoint, there were several changes made to the CRM and to the selling process before live training began, and it happened too soon, so it couldn't be included in the live training. So they used Q to proactively communicate these changes and to validate everyone's understanding of these changes as well. The last is reinforcement, which is q.MINDshare's sweet spot. Once a week for several weeks, everyone received a quick reinforcement session. While this was happening, management was using q.MINDshare dashboards to identify gaps and risks, and they were able to identify 6 areas that they felt were adoption risks, so they were able to proactively address it and manage it before it ever became a problem. The Office of CIO called this the smoothest enterprise rollout in recent memory and attributed a lot of that success to how they leveraged Q. Aris and Land America are examples of customers that used Q following a merger. For example, Land America acquired a title insurance company, which meant their credit services division was now expected to also sell title insurance products to their major banking and lending customers. Training for this was totally status quo. They flew 300 sales reps to California for 3 days of death by PowerPoint instructor-led training, followed by several e-learning courses at their corporate university LMS. The only difference was how they used Q. And since this was their first experience with Q, they decided to run a little A/B experiment, where only half their sales force got weekly Q reinforcement post-training. That way, after 90 days, they'd be able to see if Q actually does drive better outcomes. After 90 days, the 150 reps that were getting weekly q.MINDshare reinforcement after training sold $380,000 in title insurance per rep. And the status quo group that just went through training without the reinforcement averaged only $200,000 per rep. That's a 90% improvement. You can read more about Aris and other success stories on our website. Most of our customers are really big companies with really big initiatives, but you don't have to be a Fortune 500 company to use Q. Our customer Mind Research Institute is a nonprofit company with less than 200 full-time employees. They're literally changing the world with a neuroscience-based game called ST Math that develops powerful math schema in school children, turning them into more confident students and better critical thinkers. Having a strong math schema means kids actually understand math instead of just memorizing different formulas with little understanding of why, how, or when to use them. Since their offering to school systems is based on complex neuroscience, and since there were so many possibilities of employees formally and informally speaking with school administrators, principals, teachers, and even parents, Mind Research's leadership team felt it was critical to get everyone in the company, regardless of role, on the same page with company messaging, products, and mission. Whether you are an engineer, an office worker, or the CEO, you were part of this Q campaign. So let's take a look at how Mind Research used Q for this initiative. First, what did they have to do in order to launch the initiative? First thing was prepare their status quo training, which was several WebEx sessions delivered to every employee in the company. Next, they had to prep q.MINDshare for the campaign, and that entailed using Q's built-in authoring tool to rapidly build 40 reinforcement nuggets, which basically is an interactive reinforcement question or tip. Once they're built, they assign, stage, and schedule deliveries, and the way that they were doing this is they were going to deliver 5 interactive nuggets every Wednesday for 8 weeks. Next, they delivered their WebEx training, and once that training was complete, the q.MINDshare campaign began. The way it works is they had scheduled this to drip 5 nuggets every Wednesday for 8 weeks. First Wednesday arrives, they get notified, they have 5 reinforcement nuggets to consume, takes them maybe 5-10 minutes to complete. Typically, when used for reinforcement, 3 or 4 of these interactive nuggets are question-based, so we're asking them questions about stuff they should know about ST Math neuroscience, or we're providing them situations and asking them what they should say or do in those situations. Nothing rocket science about that. The audience engages in the content. If they respond correctly on the questions, fantastic, and if they don't, Q gives them instant feedback so they can learn more about the right response. And then Q goes away for a whole week. And then the following Wednesday, Q delivers the next 5 nuggets, and that's when adaptive reinforcement begins. The entire time, every 5 nuggets, Q is measuring and baselining everyone's understanding of the material. It's also identifying gaps. So on subsequent delivery sessions, not only is it reinforcing 5 new things, but it's also adapting each user's gaps and reinforcing stuff that they didn't understand in prior sessions. This cycle repeats itself for 8 weeks. And actually, because of adaptive reinforcement, it typically goes on a couple more weeks. So now that you understand that, what I'm going to do right now is build out the campaign, send it to an audience, and then we're going to see an audience member actually take the campaign. And then we'll take a look at some of the dashboards and reports. I am logged in as a Q admin, and I'm about to build the 8-week campaign. Before I do that, I wanted to show you this list of reinforcement nuggets that have already been built with Q's authoring tool. There they are, and they're in the right sequence, and we named the list Neuroscience First Campaign. So let me exit out of that. Now I'm going to build the campaign by clicking here, New Q Campaign. First thing I'm going to do is select my target audience, and in this example, I am going to use all my full-time employees. Next thing I do is give this thing a name, ST Math Neuroscience. And now I go ahead and add that list of pre-built reinforcement nuggets. So here they are. They're in the sequence that I already predetermined, but if I wanted to, I could continue to change the sequence. But these are the 40 reinforcement nuggets that are going to be delivered over an 8-week period. And here's where I establish that 8-week period. So I don't have to schedule 8 deliveries, I just have to schedule 1. I'm going to say a daily item limit of 5, and that means any delivery is going to deliver 5 reinforcement nuggets. It's going to be in a weekly schedule, and it's only going to deliver on Wednesdays. And I'm going to move up here and give it a start date. We're going to start this on Wednesday, October 5th. I'm going to give this a theme image for the campaign. So there's the campaign image, and I'm going to click send. So there it is, the 8-week campaign. Nothing left to do. Q's going to wait around until October 5th, and on that Wednesday it's going to deliver the first 5 nuggets, and then on October 12th it's going to deliver the next 5 and begin the adaptive reinforcement campaign. Pretty easy. I'm logged in as part of the target audience right now, so you can watch me take the campaign from my Windows PC, and then you'll see me take it from an iPhone. Worth noting for Windows users, there's nothing to remember to do with Q. When you turn on your PC, Q will load a blue Q icon into your system tray and log you into the Q content server automatically. Check for new content. If there isn't any new content, nothing happens. Nothing to do. But if there is new content, I get an on-screen above the noise notification like this. So it's a call to action. I click on the notification and it launches today's browser-based review. Just a reminder, this campaign is all about reinforcing the complex neuroscience that makes ST Math such an effective game to help children develop good math schema. And every single question or tip of this review is reinforcing certain elements that are important for me to remember. My review session starts with a multiple choice question. It's asking me a question about formative feedback, and I will select my answer, submit it, and I responded correctly. You'll notice there's additional feedback presented to the user once they submit their answer. That feedback could include video or deep links to other resources. I can go ahead and read that, or I can have Q's built-in text-to-speech engine just read it back for me.
STMath's formative feedback is one of the most important elements that distinguish us.
And then I'll move on to my next nugget. This is a multiple answer format, so it's asking me about the 3 strongest benefits of having a solid math schema, and I will select my answers. And this one I got partially correct, and click next. Here's a situational question where I have to hear the question that this principal asks, and I have to come up with the best response to her question. While this can be an embedded video, in this case it is our text-to-speech capability, which makes things interactive, but just a lot faster and easier to do than video.
I am curious, why do the 3rd grade fraction objectives have so many games and models?
I hear her question and I come up with the best response. I submit it. I responded correctly, but it's also got someone saying the best response as well.
We have many games and models because it is important that students are able to think flexibly about the concept of fractions.
Great, and I really like this one, so I'm going to add it to my favorites. Anytime I complete content, I can review it anytime that I want, but adding it to my favorites gives me a shortcut to the content that I found most helpful. This 4th nugget is a scenario question. It is open-ended, and it is actually providing me with a situation. And rather than me selecting from multiple choices, I have to come up with the best response. So I read the question, I enter my response, I submit it, and then I'm asked to self-grade. Here is my response, and here is the best practices response example. And I'm being asked, how does your response compare with the example provided? And I'm satisfied with my answer, but after reading the response example, I think I can do better. So I say my response could be better, and I'd like a second chance at this later. Click next. This next question is a reflective question, so there is no right or wrong answer. We're asking the learner about their opinions or in their experiences. So I'm going to select this answer, go ahead and read the feedback, click next. So I'm done. For this campaign, Mind Research activated our leaderboard, and they're having a contest. The top 10 users actually get prizes. And while everyone gets points for completing their session, you get bonus points if you complete it the same day it was delivered. So that's what this wheel is. I'm going to spin the wheel. Got my 10 points, pretty happy about that. Move on to the next thing. It shows me what my cumulative points are so far, and it also is pointing out that I do have some additional reinforcement to do based on some gaps identified in prior sessions, but pretty straightforward. The Q experience is identical no matter what device your employee is using. While you watch the iPhone experience on the left, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why device access to Q matters. So let's watch this for 1 second. There's the push notification, and then they're going to take today's campaign. Okay, while that's running, we've been compiling completion stats since 2006, and that's nearly 1 million Q users over 15 plus years. What were their completion stats based on how they are accessing Q content? And not surprisingly, when Q is used as part of the information gym, when it's just a web portal, weekly completion of this content is only 18%. It's very, very low. And when we add, okay, we'll send an email out every time there's new content, we get a slight bump. But in either case, you're not going to get any benefit out of q.MINDshare if that is your weekly completion rate. So let's add iPhone or Android. If you download the app to an iPhone or an Android, our weekly completion rates really improved dramatically, nearly to 70%. And some would argue that's really, really good. But it still means 30% or 32% that aren't completing every week. And here's where the stats get interesting. If the only way people are accessing Q content is with the Windows app, that little system tray icon that pops up a notification once a week when they have new content to review, our weekly completion stats skyrocket to 85%. And even better, when you combine Windows app and smartphone app, our weekly completion stats average 95%. Why does that matter? Because you're not going to get benefit unless people are looking at it. You can have the best content in the world, and if people aren't doing it, then it doesn't matter. But if you could get 95% of the attention of your workforce, how would you leverage that? Every person in the organizational hierarchy has a personal dashboard, and every supervisor has a team dashboard. This is James Zier's team dashboard. If there's anything to be alarmed about, we're going to tell James right here. Right now, things are trending in the right direction. We trended up from a baseline understanding of 60% to a current understanding of 86%, and we're also improving our weekly engagement rate from 81 to 86%. When I scroll down here, we segment team members into most improved, most engaged, and least engaged. And I see that Kathleen Pascoe has, let me see what her level of improvement was. There she is right here. Went from a 41% baseline understanding to an 86% baseline understanding. So it's 111% improvement. And I want to acknowledge that. So I'm going to click on this coaching button, and Q will tell you based on the reason that you're coaching and providing feedback of how to do that. So I'm going to type in my coaching here and hit submit, and Kathleen will receive that message from Q tomorrow. If I continue to scroll down, I can see how each team member is doing, who's engaged, who's not, who might need some help. And if I actually click on the campaign itself, we provide gap analysis so a manager can understand if they're going to reinforce some additional points, which points they need to reinforce. We've talked through how Q can add value for a big initiative, but what about important time-sensitive changes that aren't quite as big as all those big initiatives? What about important changes in policy, procedure, messaging, product, things that are really important to validate that everyone understands and at the same time difficult to get the message through? This is seen most frequently with companies like American Express, Centene, and Arizona Power that have large call center operations because change is a weekly event in those environments. Let's take a look. Let's say we're a health insurance company and we just found out about a new documentation procedure change that impacts one of our health plans. Now, status quo would say, let's post that in our knowledge base, let's send out an email, maybe let's print it out and put it on people's desks and hope everyone reads it and understands it. Let's add Q to the mix though. How would this happen with Q? With Q, we can make sure everyone sees the change, and we can also validate that everyone read and understood the change. So let's run through this once again. We schedule Q to send out a scrolling ticker message to everyone in the health plan Tuesday morning at a specific time. When that time arrives, we get a scrolling ticker. This ticker will not take ownership of the window. So if I'm an agent in the middle of typing some important notes, it's not going to impact that at all, but it certainly gets my attention. And I'll click on it, and it takes me straight to that document on SharePoint. So now we validated because we track clicks, so we know everyone has accessed this. So that's half the battle. The next day, let's stage a question so we can validate that not only did they receive it, not only did they read it, but they also understood it. There's the notification. I click on it, and it's asking me a question. So member called in asking this, what intents would you use to document the request? I'm going to think of that, answer these two. and I got it partially correct. Now here it provides additional feedback, but it also provides me a link right back to that document on SharePoint. What we're getting as a result of this is not only a way to get everyone to look at the important change, we've got a real-time way of validating that they read it and understood it. And because Q does adaptive reinforcement, and because I did not answer this correctly, it's going to serve up this question again tomorrow, optimally the way this would be set up. Did they receive it? Did they read it? Did they understand it? And if they didn't, did they eventually understand it? A lot of accountability, a lot of validation. It's part learning, part accountability, but it is a very popular use case for Q. I hope you found this overview of q.MINDshare productive and informative. The bottom line, Q drives very big benefits for being so easy to deploy and so easy to use. It is, however, very easy to use incorrectly, and that's where we come in. We've been doing this longer than anyone, and if you don't believe me, ask the competitor to show you their first mobile release and see if it's on a BlackBerry. We are a customer intimate organization dedicated to your success. After 16 years and thousands of initiatives, we know the right and wrong way to do things, and we want to make sure that you maximize your return on investment and use Q in all the right ways. Thank you again. Hope to hear from you soon.